percentage of the total budget for these events is the 73.2? Done.
Excuse me?
What percentage of the total events is this 73,200?
That's just the three events that we, the St. Patrick's, the 4th of July, and the Christmas.
No, is that 100% of the event?
That is correct.
Is paid for by A and B?
Yes,
So that's your total budget per project, right? Or not?
for all three projects. Last year, we budgeted 80,000. We came in under that budget. And we, spent, what you said, is almost a 73. 73.2 on all events. That's everything we spent, with staging, bands, everything. We didn't spend it, the city spent it.
Well, the A and B corp spent it.
Yes.
How about corporate sponsorships?
What about?
So that's, I mean, those funds that came from A and B, there were no additional expenses for the events that, I don't know, one of
No.
the corporate sponsors sponsored fireworks or,
Well, we have, Terry, he's our treasurer at our Chamber of Commerce. The only thing we did is we did acquire a corporate sponsor for 4th of July to increase the visual of the fireworks this year. So we added another 3,000, I believe.
and that was
to
paid for by
By a corporate sponsor.
that's the only corporate sponsorship we've had?
That's to pay for what was at the event, yes.
Okay. What did the corporate sponsorships pay for then?
They pay for, basically that's how we get reimbursed at the chamber for managing the event. We don't charge the 4A, 4B, anything for managing any part of the event whatsoever. All the things, our time, our efforts, and everything is paid for by what we can solicit to our members in our chamber and those that wanna, put their advertising on stage or something like that.
And what's that amount?
Terry,
What was the question?
what was the amount that corporations have given us to put their name on our stage?
Well, we can certainly get you that information, but what we're, as Don's already mentioned, what our goal is to at least cover our expense. Don and Amy are the only two paid, employees at the chamber, and so we've asked them, and I don't know if y'all got copies of it or not, but Don provided, the city a detail of everything that he does, everything that we do for each one of the events. And, again, I don't know if y'all received that or not. CJ?
I did not include it in the packets this evening, no.
Okay.
How is that
I did
different
not
than this
know.
breakdown?
So what you're saying is this is like capital expenditures for equipment and outside, and that's the corporate sponsors just pay for two people's time to put together the event?
But y'all didn't happen to bring that with you, did you?
The-
Yeah.
We have a copy.
You want,
It's
you
just
wanna
a
make copies,
quantitative,
if you're comfortable handing it out,
Sure, if
then,
you wanna make a copy.
yeah, we can get copies and,
it's a quantitative analysis
So you got
of
what
everything
you're-
that it takes to put the event together from beginning to end, which is, at least a 3-month project for each.
Essentially, back in 2014, in January 2014, when the chamber came into an existence, we worked with the then Economic Development Director and the Communications Marketing Director, Mary Meyer. And they had, we worked together to do the first St. Patrick's Day of 2014 in conjunction with the chamber. Soon after that, we were asked by them, which I understood represented the city, that we take over the management of all the events at no charge, but any money we could raise with doing the event, getting corporate sponsorships, would be to pay for our time and efforts and coordinating, and I have everything listed here on this page being sent around that we do for each and every event. And the man hours, per se, at the bottom are really quite a conservative estimate at this time.
Don, the numbers at the bottom are for all three events, right?
Yes, ma'am, it is. And as I said, those are quite conservative. I didn't wanna overestimate, but I'm sure there's some hours in there that, you know, late night calls, sticking around till 1 o'clock in the morning supervising the cleanup, that kind of things where I'm not actually working per se, but I guess, managing the event on day of the event, as I put there on the day of the event, is, probably a little low. We just kinda estimated if we were to work solid 2 weeks on an event, but as of right now, I mean, we're planning the Christmas event right now. We're 6 months in advance in order to get the right bands, to secure the staging, to do that sort of thing. We always plan everything almost 6 months in advance, so there's hours on a daily basis that we are involved in pertaining to any number of events. We're already even talking about next 4th of July. We've even, you know, been discussing what we're doing then as well.
And so $48,000 is the corporate sponsorship amount?
I don't know, Randy, Terry?
Randy, let me go
What?
around with you.
I don't see the corporate sponsorship amount on here, I just
We
see
didn't
it.
put it on the.
No, this, Randy, as Don explained, this was, asked of us by the city to quantify what we do as a chamber to run the events for the city. So we were never asked to put any of that information in there, so that's an analysis of what we do as a chamber in all of us together. And Don, at the bottom, you'll see $100 an hour. We were asked, what would it typically cost for an event planner to do this, and that's where the $100 came from. If you wanna know, is the chamber making a potload of money off of these events, I can tell you, again, our goal is we go out, we solicit sponsorships to cover our expense. Don and Amy are paid out of the chamber, not by the city event funds. So our goal is to cover their time, which if you just look at 2015, Don and Amy, if you take the 330 hours, their combined hourly rate's about $60. So that's gonna put you in the $20,000 range. If you look at 2015, if you're asking what were the total sponsorship dollars, I think the more important question is, how much did we net? Because I can tell you the sponsorship dollars are $300,000, but what did we actually net? So if you take just Don and Amy's hourly rate combined at those hours, we netted about $2,000 in 2015 off of those three events. And on top of that, I'm not including the 5 to 7 board members' time, which every single board meeting, we spend a lot of time talking about these events. All of us volunteer at those events at no charge to the city. Plus, we put together at least 20, if not more, volunteers who all volunteer their time at every one of these events. So what we see as our role is to, if we can at least cover our expense and put on a great event for the city, we're doing a service for our membership, which is what we're here for. In addition, we believe that we're a big benefit to the city. I think if you look at the attendance at the 3 events, in some cases it's doubled, if not tripled. And again, I've heard a couple of times from a couple of different people, you know, the chamber should be making money off of city events. Actually, we're not making money off of events, we're earning money that we solicit to cover our expense. So again, the more important thing is how much does the chamber actually net? If you factor in what we're paying Don and Amy salaries, and they're devoting time to the city's events.
So if Don and Amy weren't devoting that time, what would they be doing?
We-
I guess I'm just confused how this ended up as an economic development corporation project for something that the
Randy,
city.
keep in mind,
wasn't-
we're only 2.5 years old, so I think there was an attempt from the city to help us grow.
Which is fine, so the city can spend its tax dollars, right?
The
Whether it's
city-
property tax dollars
The city
or.
was doing, and I'm
Yeah.
this is a question mark for context, the city was doing events prior to the chamber doing
Correct.
events. The
With
chamber,
EDC dollars or
Oh,
with
yeah.
city
the
dollars?
city
It's always
has
been
always
EDC
spent
dollars.
EDC dollars for events.
Going back at least 9 years.
Yeah.
So really what shifted was from city staff doing events to chamber helping to facilitate those events with their connections, and in lieu of a management fee.
And in 2014, the two people left and we had nobody to take their
Correct.
place, so we were the only thing left.
And now on the city side, I don't know that there's anybody that, I mean,
And how does this fit in statute for EDC expenditures?
For 4B, it's tourism development, sales tax impact. Typically speaking, the reports we give to businesses downtown is their heaviest sales tax days are your festival days.
Which we don't have a lot of data from this year, cause we had an audit that month from
Right.
Christmas,
Yeah.
and then we only gained 2% in,
July yet.
oh no, we lost,
We haven't
we
got-
lost 2% in March for St. Patty's Day, even though that was a big catch, so.
St. Patrick is typically the smallest event, most smallest attended event, because it's during the day. The biggest event by far is the 4th of July. This year, we estimated nearly 9,000 people downtown. When we first started, we probably had maybe 2,000 downtown.
Just 2 years ago.
Just 2 years ago. And we have had people call the chamber from as far as Woodlands, Stafford, Missouri City, far reaches of the Houston area, as far south as Lake Jackson, that, hey, we heard about your event, we'd like to come. And that's pretty impressive if we're getting that kind of notoriety. They all like to come out here, and it seems like everyone has a great time. And all the businesses downtown, including all the businesses that rent or have booths or tents downtown, we had nearly, I think at 4th of July, nearly 60 vendor booths. We had, most of them are chamber members. Every one of them sold out. I mean, I've never seen pepperonis or Ray's run out of food. I mean, Subway had no bread left. The candy at Sweet Tooth was, they had the best day they've had in their history of being a business here in Fulshear.
Aren't we already paying a bit of a management fee by being a member of the chamber?
Well,
The $5,000 that we're paying, isn't that in theory city funds that are going
yes.
to the chamber for y'all to manage this program as well?
Not
So-
necessarily.
That's a chamber membership that doesn't have anything to do with management of events.
If I could
So
point
it's
out.
going to the same salary bucket that we're paying for the 21,000 or whatever the calculation was, right?
Well, I assure you, if
donations.
we were paid $5,000 to run the event, I'd probably turn it down. But I would say that in 2014, when we started this partnership, the Economic Development 4A joined at a $5,000 platinum level along with 4B to seed the chamber as we grew. Last year, or this year, the last budget cycle, Mr. Archer and the WENA, y'all lowered it to 2,500, the goal, I believe, isn't that right,
Yeah, that's
Reverend?
right.
And we were appreciative of that, and you still maintain your membership in the chamber. 4B remained at their $5,000 level. That was a decision. You're more than welcome to still be a member even at the bronze level, if you like, which is $275.
But we appreciate your support as it is now. We hope that you would continue.
So, CJ, you had said that it was part of tourism as 4B, so we're acting, 4A is acting as a 4B, what happens?
And I would say if y'all, if the contextual concern is a concern about events in general, outside of who's managing or how they're being managed, if the question is this an allowable expenditure, one, and two, is this something priority-wise that the corporations want to continue? We can prepare a little bit more background on that, and from the city side, these are very valuable community events for sure, if for nothing else.
As a community event.
Exactly, and so if that
Do
discussion.
other cities pay for their
A
4th
lot-
of July and Christmas events out of their economic development funds, or do they do it out of the city budget?
I'm not familiar with the economic development fund side. A lot of them fund them out of HOT funds, hotel occupancy tax funds for tourism development, which we don't have yet, but we may have. A lot of smaller cities, probably when they start with economic development, if there's not enough, that's one way that they feel they can have a big impact in terms of community, quality of life, creating a sense of place, that type of thing, so.
And I think that's how it kind of.
I haven't queried it specifically, but
No,
they can
I
be
mean,
funded a lot of
Again,
different.
the
Do other
projects have a
cities,
life
though,
cycle,
have-
right, so.
corporations that sponsor the fireworks and sponsor the stage and sponsor all of it, so that it doesn't have to come out of city funds at all?
There's a large cost to community events and they hardly ever make any money, if ever. If you grow an event into something that's a tourism destination type event that has a different purpose, a Sugarland Food and Wine Affair, that's a completely different type of event. If you're looking at an event to bolster kind of your downtown businesses, but also to bring people together and to keep that small town feel, that truly is a community event. And it sounds like the question is really, one, is that allowable, and two, is that a priority for the corporations? And then the
Yeah,
follow
and should
on
the
to all that.
corporation be going out and getting corporate sponsors to pay for the event rather than
the-
running it through the Chamber of Commerce?
And the
Which
trade.
seems like we did it out of convenience, not for
Well,
a
the-
real sort of targeted approach.
Yeah, and I can't speak to that because I wasn't here. But the other side of that is, you know, priorities, work scheduling, that type of thing, but one, is it allowable? Two, is it a priority you wanna continue to fund? And then three, if not, what does the city do if the city still feels like community or events are important? You know, is there another opportunity for that? So there's a couple different, that doesn't help any of it, but that's just, there's a lot of things attached to it. So, the budget that was presented is based on previous, years for y'all's consideration, so.
Is 75 the run rate for the 3 years, or has it changed?
It's gone up, but it's pretty well leveled off.
Past 2 years, it's been 80,000. Prior to that, I think it was 48,000. We made a big jump 2 years ago. When,
And that was,
You know, and the reason we made the big jump, the EDCs at the time wanted bigger name bands that would attract more people downtown.
well, we did, yes, and we changed a lot of our equipment and, you know, what we were getting. We went from having a small scale stage to blocking off, you know, Main Street and putting that big stage, which was the majority of those funds, that we locked those dollars in to be able to do that, so that we.
It's night and day difference today, the last 2 years, the events
Sure, I
compared to
mean, I
prior
can
years.
remember in 2009 when we were
Everything
doing
grew
this, and
when
we
the
were
chamber
funding
took
it,
it over.
it was $10,000, I mean,
Yeah.
that was all we spent.
And I know it's $1,000, but the rationale on this Fulshear was,
It
I
was.
think we felt like we were gonna be creating a draw. I don't know. that
and
we-
did it?
I don't know.
Miss Fulshear started out as something back in 08, 09 when they first brought on these events and were doing them as like a Little Miss Firecracker pageant kind of thing that was incorporated into the 4th of July event.
So even if you can underwrite the tourism development dollars from people coming in and spending money for the parades and parties, which, okay. Struggle to imagine there's a whole lot of tourism related dollars for somebody coming in for half a day for a
It-
beauty
Well, you can
contest.
say, yeah, in the old days, it was coupled with the 4th of July.
Right, it was all part of the 4th of July event.
Again, just me, but
Yeah.
we should
Of course,
probably strike that $1,000 from this year's budget, or I'd like to see that separate when we do the events, so.
If I could also mention that when you have somewhere in the neighborhood of 9,000 people coming to our downtown event, even though it be for half a day, can't get into the nice quaint restaurants or the businesses we have here, it's hard to put a finger on how many return to the area and say, that's a nice place, I like to buy a house there, I maybe like to go down there and shop, I like to eat there, it's a nice place. There's a lot of residual income that is unaccounted for because of the event.
Do we ever survey people at the events about their spending and what they come back and do? Like this year, did we ask them, did they come back last year, and how much did they spend in Fulshear in
We have no way to do
2015?
that unless we, sit at a booth and talk to every single person, but we don't have the personnel for that.
But we have received calls a
Yes.
day or two, a week after an event, and, people just mentioned to us, I remember on a couple of occasions, one was from Missouri City, heard about one of the festivals, came here, and it actually had them looking at Cross Creek, as a place to move to, just because of the overall atmosphere that they experienced just on that one day. So Is it a one-off deal maybe, but, there's no doubt that there is that result to some degree.
I think in addition, you got quite a few people that come to downtown, see what we have to offer and decide to come back. I think there's no doubt about that. It's also the fact that we get, as we prepare an event, we have a comprehensive media list that stretches statewide. And we get a lot of free publicity from not only our local paper, the West Fort Bend Buzz, but Fort Bend Herald, the countywide. We've even been written up in the Texas Monthly. We've been mentioned on the local Fox 4 News. We actually, Chamber was instrumental in bringing Fox 4 to town to do a Your Hometown event, where they did a whole expose on the town. So,
Well, I would point out also that the Christmas event the year before with Elvis was the progenitor of a discussion that we had with a large manufacturing firm, and impressed the relocation manager enough that he actually initiated a discussion with us in the corporate offices, on a potential relocation. That hasn't come to fruition yet, but
Rising Sun?
yes.
Just feels a little anecdotal. I'd like to see some data.
Yeah, no,
We
there's no-
survey
yeah.
people that, you know, this Christmas, did you come back because of the event? How much did you spend in Fulshear in 2016 to get a sense for what this $75,000 is buying in terms of economic development and tourism development?
The only data that we saw, for example, last year was you could see in the months that we had the events was the increase year over year.
In December.
No, I'm talking about the previous fiscal year when we were doing this.
Right, but she.
But
Now,
December's
this
always
year,
gonna
I
be,
can't-
December's always gonna be your biggest month, so you
No, but-
can't attribute that to the event, right?
Well, but she's
No,
saying.
but from the event of last year to the event of 2014.
Oh, I see.
Right,
Yep.
and then you look
But
at
I
March.
can't, but I
which
can't look
typically
at
is a low
that
month.
this year because the sales tax dollars are so skewed. That's the only data.
I would say, Mr. Katz, in order to get the data that you would need, we would have to take part of that budget, probably perhaps hire a company to come out here with clipboards and survey everybody and walk around and ask questions. We don't sell tickets to the event, otherwise we would have emails to send out sort of a.
But if you talk to people, you get a sense, right?
And another thing on the
Part of our
contextual
commercial
side,
budget.
if the corporations want to assess the, I'm gonna use the term value very loosely here, but you can also look at kind of impact studies for particular events or particular draws from a tourism standpoint. That's a little more complex and that would kind of be in the plans and studies, but there are ways to look at that contextually. Oftentimes it's with bigger events, but,
What's the payroll expense on here? Three-quarters of the way down on page 20. $2,000 of payroll expense.
Police department. Police department,
That's not the security.
no. You have security where they, for extra jobs, where we bring in extra security to pay extra jobs, but then anything that's associated with, that if they're on our payroll, that's where we expensed it. But we brought in outside Fort Bend County,
Oh,
contract.
yes,
To supplement.
that's the security.
sheriff's office,
The security is the
Yes,
sheriff's office.
yes, sir.
Security for
The payroll is we bring on additional city staff in addition to what we would normally have in,
yes, sir.
Correct.
and that gets reallocated to the EDCs, not
Yes,
to the
sir.
police budget?
So are we maxed out on attendance if we have 9,000 people downtown? How much bigger can the event get?
At
That's-
that
Good
facility?
We're pretty much pushing it.
I was gonna say, I'm just trying to figure 9,000 people.
Well, keep in mind that we do have people coming and going, so that was an estimate of the total attendance.
Yeah,
But,
it was,
It was wall to wall. You couldn't walk through downtown Main Street without, within a foot of somebody without being face to face with them.
No. I'm on my space.
But it seemed like everyone did have a good time, and for that crowd, I think it was, tremendously successful event, no events, the police department had no issues, parking was straight up, handled tremendously, and,
What about participation on the parade?
well.
I heard some negative things
Yes, ma'am,
about
that has suffered, the reason it has suffered, I think, in a lot of ways is because when we started, it was always free to enter the parade, and we never charged anybody to be in the parade like we charge our vendor booths. And so we've had a lot of people just jump into the parade. It became fairly big, and Randy and Terry kind of manage it. This last 4th of July, we didn't have many people jump into the parade because of whatever reason they might have at 4th of July. And then all of a sudden, there's no way to vet when they say they're gonna have something in the parade. We just trust it's gonna be something patriotic and nice for everyone to see. The best thing we had was our fire department, our police department. We had horse riders, but there was a pumper truck with a hose on it that went through, and I had no clue who that was. It was just no way to control that unless we say, hey, you're gonna be an event, there's a fee to enter the event, you gotta tell us what the parade item is going to be. The next evolution that we're going to do though is we're gonna take it back to basics. We're gonna not have motorized vehicles in the parade. We decided that we're gonna go, people love to walk in the parade. The police department said we can't do that because we had little kids that would run in front of some of the vehicles, and it was a dangerous situation. We couldn't throw things to the audience because if candy fell by a wheel, there was a few kids we had, anyway. So we're getting rid of all motorized vehicles. This is the plan, that we will start over at the library like we used to, with groups of Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, our new marching band from the Fulshear High School, and they'll come out and they'll march straight up Main Street towards First Street, take a right, go behind Wallace, it's over. Kids can march, they can hand out stuff, it's a marching parade, pulling wagons, family-friendly kind of thing. I think that would be better. I think everyone would love it because it's getting ridiculous with the size of some of the things in the parade that don't show what the parade's about. I mean, Christmas is a little better in some cases. We had Red Potato Market, did a fantastic float, it looked very gorgeous, but we gotta do something that everyone can get involved in and participate. And I think people love to walk in a parade. And when they were walking, there was a danger factor, plus it was stretching out the parade and taking way too long. It's too far to walk from Huggins also, all the way downtown too. So we're gonna simplify it.
So do you have a parade with each one of these events?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Maybe you're over paraded?
Perhaps,
Maybe if you
so.
just did one, people, I'm not gonna do this one because I'm gonna do that one.
Yeah, people
you know?
love a parade. Maybe it's just it became too complacent. 4th of July, it's just too hot.
It was on a Monday.
Yeah.
And it was on a Monday, some people getting in from out of town. St. Patrick's Day, traditionally people have parades, but it's kind of during the day and it doesn't work. The best might work out for Christmas, but let me tell you, the chief, if I said no parade and we're doing the walk-in, they are loving it because the parades are actually very difficult on the police department to keep people at bay. The only way we could really do a legitimate parade with motorized vehicles and keep people safe is we would have to have those steel kind of fencing barriers along the roads.
Just don't have the room.
And we don't have any place to put that, cause then when the parade's gone, people just fill the street. Well, those now we can't get out of the way. In Rosenberg, they have the Fort Bend County parade is almost 3-4 mile parade, and they have barriers like they do downtown Houston to keep the public from getting into the parade route. So that's why they can throw things. It keeps kids from running out there. We just don't have that luxury.
And usually there are people lined up from Sweet Tooth all the way to the post office on both sides of the road. So they're all coming with their chairs waiting for a parade. It's really up to us to present a nice parade. So it's not like there aren't a couple thousand people that don't want it, because there are a lot of people that line the roads for that parade.
But again, it's constantly telling them to get behind the white line along 359. We try to stretch a rope out with our volunteers to keep people from getting in. So anyway, maybe you're right. I think if we go with the smaller one, like we're talking about, where the walkers, the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, the choirs, the area groups of kids riding their tricycles or pulling their wagons or the bike, it would just be really kind of back to that hometown, how it kind of used to be,
But So for it to be crowded is a good problem, not a bad problem.
Yeah.
And I think we can brainstorm probably a lot of different, inputs, as we,
Sure.
get more involved, just to stay on topic and move along. We've covered events, we've covered the expenditure detail on agenda item number 8. Part C is talking about the draft administrative services agreement.
So the last kind of paperclip in